So the example of a civilization that we're going to cover together as a class to kind of give us examples of the themes would be Greece. And Greece as we know it, as you can see on the map, it's bordered by the Aegean Sea to the east, the Ionian Sea to the west, and then to the south, we're looking at the Sea of Crete. Now, modern estimates, modern population of about 11 million, a little over 3 million living in the capital of Athens. 80% of Greece is mountainous, and the sea has really always held a special place for the Greeks. Now, when Greece develops the civilization as we know it, it's realistically a little more at the end of the time frame of our unit, but it does provide a basis for what we refer to as Western civilization. So that's ultimately why we're taking a look at it as our example. So in terms of what best describes Greek life, the vast majority of the Greek population lived within about 40 miles of one of those three seas. And most of the land itself is dry and bare. It's really more suited to planting and cultivating olive trees, which is why olive oil is a massive import from this region. So the rocky mountainous terrain, it's really going to lead to a fierce independence in which the residents themselves, they are going to be loyal to the members only of their city since travel is so difficult. Given that they're surrounded by seas, they're also going to look to the sea for, food imports, trade, and to get new ideas. So by the 580s BC, Greek colonists had actually founded multiple cities that are kind of scattered through the coast of southeastern Europe and the western portion of the Middle East. So to do this, these colonists would have to renounce the citizenship to what was called their mother city. Their word for this was metropolis. Metropolis actually means mother city, and it's still with us today to describe a large urban center. Once they renounced their citizenship, they would form a new Greek city, complete with, these transplanted ideas, customs, and foodstuffs. Initially, the cities are linked, but once established, the colony acted independently. This really allows Greek culture to spread throughout the Mediterranean basin. And from the beginning, when we say Greek, it combined the traditions of Asian, Italian, Phoenician, and African cultures to make something different. So the Greeks have kind of always believed themselves to be special in a way. Everyone who was not Greek was referred to as a barbarian. So just the phrase barbarian simply means not Greek, and its usage today kind of indicates what Greeks thought of people who weren't them. Now, slavery was an accepted part of everyday life, as the philosopher Aristotle referred to a slave as a living piece of property. The majority of slaves worked in the fields or the mines, and they lived a brutal life. It's owned by somebody else. Now, some slaves are able to get an education and learn a trade, like sculpting, while others are trusted to live in their own homes and manage their master's business. A wealthy Athenian, about 10 to 20 slaves, while a pretty well-off individual could have about 2 to 3. Now, it's estimated that by the 400s BC, there were as many as 150,000 slaves in Athens alone, and the Spartans, we know, had 4 times as many slaves as they had full citizens. So we've seen that early faith and early religion, it's more associated with cyclical items like the seasons, or elements like wind and fire and maybe the earth itself. The Greeks gave their gods human features, but more importantly, they gave them human emotions. They were constantly using humans for their own amusement, but also really to torment one another. And this brings up an important point about the context in which these Greeks lived. They did believe in the concept of free will and making their own choices, but at the end of the day, their fate was what it was. It really couldn't be changed. So, whatever Zeus wants, as you see on screen, Zeus is going to get. Now, regarding how they interacted with one another when they did choose to interact, the concept of warfare amongst the Greeks, it was more melees, where warrior leaders would lead scrums of individuals and they'd just fight each other. The leaders would seek each other out to fight one-on-one, while general chaos kind of ensued around them. And we really don't know anything about their tactics, but we do know that courage and bravery were heavily emphasized. So the new hoplite warriors began to replace these heroes of old. The hoplites are equipped with bronze helmets, they have breastplates, and they have shin guards, and they hold a wooden shield known as a hoplon, and that's where hoplite comes from. They got a short sword for hand-to-hand combat, and they also all received a spear 1.5 times the length of their bodies. The armor is protective, but it really rendered them pretty immobile. So the famous phalanx is developed, where men stand in tight formation about 4 to 8 men deep. This type of battle, just very effective on level terrain. But Greece is so mountainous that there really were only a few places that a battle could actually occur. Now casualties were often low, because hoplites would rarely, they don't break ranks a ton to chase a fleeing enemy. And the armor, again, it's not good for running. A well-trained Greek army is hard to beat, so becoming a mercenary was a really viable option for someone from this land. Now the polis and the hoplite army, two sides of the same coin. So the citizens make up the hoplite army, so these are men who have a clear stake in society. They also have to provide their own weapons and armor, so they're affluent. And remember, it's hard to effectively travel from place to place over land, so politics, so polis, city-state, or city, that's where politics comes from. Politics and decision-making are highly localized. They tend to look inward and rely on each other. So hoplites are an offshoot of the polis, whereas the hoplite army relies on the man next to them. Politically speaking, and in terms of life itself, these same people rely on one another to live their lives.